Hey everybody, it's Brent Hilvitz and Vince Reese with Redesign Realty and Plum Creek Funding. And we are here today with Van Korell, and Van is with Goose Head Insurance. Thank you for coming. We appreciate it.
Thanks for having me, Brent.
Yeah. All right. So we're going to kind of jump into this. You guys know each other how?
Well, I was referred to another broker here at Plum Creek Financial three or 4 years ago, Brian Abel, and that's how I met Vince. So I've been working with Vince for about 3 years.
Have been able to shake him since?
No.
Just kind of like that.
Hold on. It's been 3 years. You've promised to take me fishing for the last 3 years. So what's 365 days times 12? It's a lot. But you've never taken me fishing.
Well, you're the one with the boat. So all you got to do is invite.
See, I think that's the key right there, right? He's got the boat, he's got a camper.
Yeah, he's got
right? Yeah, I got none of that
this
stuff.
summer, for sure.
You promise.
Yeah.
All right, it is live right now.
We are
so you heard it here. He is taking me fishing this summer.
Yep.
Oh, we have the FedEx guy. Just came in. Say hello.
Nice.
Witness this. Oh, geez.
All right.
We are streaming live.
Very good, very good. Have a good one.
Thanks.
Thank you. See, even FedEx works in the bad weather. I bet he'd take me fishing.
This is not bad weather today.
It's a heat wave out there.
Yeah. What kind of fishing do you do? Do you fly fisherman? You seem like a fly fisherman.
I do a little bit of everything, but yeah, I do a lot of fly fishing in Colorado and a lot of largemouth, smallmouth, walleye fishing in Nebraska and Kansas,
Okay, all right.
South Dakota.
Very cool.
Some down at Pueblo Reservoir. Occasionally go down there.
Yeah.
So how long have you been pedaling like a bicycle insurance?
Oh, I've been licensed, had an insurance license since 1988.
Holy crap! I was barely out of high school.
I wasn't even born.
How old are you?
Double nickels. And
I wasn't even born.
Yeah, exactly.
Really?
Yeah.
88.
88.
I
You
was
started.
old.
That's really young.
Yeah. Anyway, so I
Sorry.
I was in college when I got my insurance license. But I've been full-time in insurance since 2015, so
All right.
9 years, I believe.
Yeah.
Prior to that, I was a commercial banker, so I switched careers in 2015, and I've been doing it ever since, helping people insure their homes and autos and umbrellas.
All right. So one of my things about insurance is I think having like a local guy is super important because I like to call with those hypothetical situations, right? So if I filed a claim like this, what would that look like, kind of thing?
Exactly, good point. It is nice to have an agent you can call anytime. I had 2 calls like that yesterday because even if you think you might have a claim and you call up the company or you get online and put that claim in there, and then you find out when they come out that roof damage is only $1,000 and your deductible is $2,500, that still goes down as a $0 claim on your insurance and counts against you.
I didn't know that.
Most people don't.
Well, it shows up on,
It'll show up as a $0 claim.
right, and there's something called a clue report, right?
Yep, you got it.
Explain to us what a clue report is.
The report that shows whoever's pulling the clue report, which comes up when you're looking at doing someone's home insurance, and tell you all the claims made on that property.
And does
That
that
could last 5 to 7 years.
okay? I was gonna say, does that last forever, or does that ever fall off?
Some companies let it fall off in 3, some are 5. Most of them are on 5, around that 5-year mark when those will fall off.
All right.
So to make sure I'm tracking here. So if somebody has water damage and they file a claim, even if they sell their house, will that follow the house with the new buyer? How does that work?
It won't affect the new buyer, but it will affect the person that's selling the house. That will follow them to the next house.
So it doesn't follow the new house? Or
It'll show up on the new house report, but it'll show its prior owner, not affecting the new owner. That's another thing, water claims, which I'm sure we had a ton of water damage claims last week.
I'm sure.
With frozen pipes.
Yeah.
Those are detrimental to your insurance score. So
why is that?
they consider that, what's the word I'd be looking for? the homeowner's not really paying attention to what they need to.
No,
They're not,
it's
they're not
preve-
taking
it's
good
preve-
care of their house.
It's preventable damage,
Yeah, exactly.
right? You should have
Why
been
didn't you
dripping
drain
your
those
water. Why
pipes?
didn't you do
Why
this? Why
didn't
did you
you
do that?
All right, I got a funny story for you.
That type of
All
thing.
right.
My wife calls me up yesterday. The laundry room's full of water. And this is a true story. Okay? So handyman Vince decided to put in some built-in cabinets in the laundry room, do some wainscoting. It all looked incredible. Well, this isn't the first time this has happened to me. I put a screw in, and it only took 5 years for that screw to penetrate the pipe.
You're just rubbing every time the washer went on, it shook just a little bit and rubbed you.
No, it was actually the drainage from the bathtub upstairs.
Oh, worse.
So
Why not?
there's
Could
only
be
a
better.
little bitty hole. So I told my wife, just chew some gum and stick it on there.
Uh-huh.
Because that should work, and then we just put duct tape around it, and that'd be fine.
Right.
Because it's still better than filing a claim. And of course, we do have to get it fixed professionally. But it's just kind of funny. We had an issue yesterday. Could it have been prevented? Yeah, my wife would quit asking me to do shit around the house. Then it would have been prevented.
That's right. That's right.
So obviously, like everything else, it's not your fault.
Of course.
That's exactly how it works, right? Yeah. It's not Vince's fault.
So would you file a claim on that?
It depends how much damage was done to the carpets or the floors and the walls.
Just the walls. I had to rip out all the sheet. She ripped out all the sheetrock.
All right.
It's important to get that dried out so you don't.
Oh,
lose
it's gonna
that
dry.
mold.
And we're gonna have kills. We're gonna do everything. Yeah, and I'm not giving you my address, so then that way you can't figure out what
Well,
I
I've
did.
got your home insurance.
He already knows.
Thanks for sharing. I'm not.
Now it's here for posterity.
Yeah, those types of deals. I mean, if you can avoid filing a claim on that, you should. Especially if you own your home and 3 or 4 rental units. If you have rental units, I had a customer a couple months ago that had filed a $3,000 water claim on a rental unit a couple years ago when it got real cold, and then like a $35,000 claim, which he had to do on another rental, and that has really affected their insurance score because those are rental homes, which are way higher risk because that's not you living there.
But I thought the
So-
premiums were less on rentals.
That depends. I know I sound like an
Everything
attorney when I
depends.
say that.
You know what?
Depends.
What are rates today? That depends. What's the
Depends.
housing
It's
market
answered
like
everything,
today?
right?
That depends. Can you give me an insurance quote? It depends.
Oh, Lord.
And we're all going to be wearing them one day.
That's right.
If we're lucky, right? Yeah. All right. So tell us some good stories. What's like the weirdest claim you've had,
Oh gosh, weirdest claim I've had.
or the stupidest claim? Or
I haven't had any real stupid claims that I can recall. We had a large one. Actually, this was a claim with a different company. I won't mention, but they are applying with insurance for me right now. One of the things that does come up is on those water damage claims, that little piece of plastic hose that goes from the hookup to your toilet.
Mhm.
I think there's a company right now. I know there is. I don't know the name of it. That is being sued because of all the, when that breaks, that will continue to run.
Yep.
This was actually happened to a friend of mine last year. Came home from Vail, him and his family, 3rd floor, walkout basement, 1st floor, 2nd floor, $475,000 while they were up there skiing.
that's an expensive key trip.
That took almost 3 years to settle.
Wow.
That deal and rebuild it. They were in a rental house for over 2 years.
Wow, that's crazy. So-
That's not the craziest, but that's probably the most dramatic story I've heard.
So is
I'm
that
trying
called,
to get him
is that,
insured because his company is dropping him now because of that claim.
is that negligence?
That's the word I was looking for. Owner negligence.
Do they consider that owner negligence?
On this particular deal, the hose he had was not the metal one,
Mhm.
but it was the plastic one, and that's the one that's involved in the lawsuit right now. So I'm not sure where that's going from.
So make sure all your
So
twins.
all that water came down for 2.5 days. They're up at their condo in Vail enjoying life. Dad comes home, calls Dad. The whole house is a swimming pool all the way to the basement. Yeah.
So I've had a similar story to that. I had some clients. They bought a house. It was for a nonprofit. a big house. They were going to use it for the nonprofit, and the nonprofit is to help women who've been sex trafficked, and so it was like a living facility type of thing. Anyway, we closed January 3rd, something like that. Whatever the first available day in January is when we closed, and we did our walkthrough. I told my client, who's also my niece, it's like, make sure that you call and get insurance and get the utilities changed. Those are the two things you need to do right away. So we leave, we close. She ends up calling me 10 days later. And she said, Hunter and I have had COVID. We have been sick as dogs. We haven't been back to the house. It's like 9, 10 o'clock at night. We just went back to the house and it is flooded, top to bottom, flooded. The ceilings are falling down. I was like, okay, you got a little leak or something. I'll come and see what's going on. And so we go there, and lo and behold, the whole thing is, like you said, it's a swimming pool. And I was like, oh my God, did you call about changing the utilities? Because the utilities were off. And she said, yes, I did. And the weird thing was, she called, and it was a rural utility company. And she said, we called. The lady said, yep, we'll do it, first thing next week, whatever it is, we'll switch it over, put a note in the computer. So the note in the computer said, call Rachel, to make sure get everything switched over, whatever it was. Well, the prior owner's name was Rachel. So they called the prior owner, said, hey, we've got these utilities, what do you want done? And prior owner's like, I sold it, turn them off. And that's what happened. And again, $500,000 in damage.
They did have insurance.
They did have insurance, but they didn't have to pay for it. And it didn't come out of their insurance because the utility company called the wrong Rachel. And they were able to prove that.
Oh, great.
Rare case that happens. But it was one of those things where 10 o'clock at night, I'm driving to Longmont, and I'm thinking, oh my God, this can't be as bad as she's saying that this is. It was worse. It was incredible. So
That's terrible.
Insurance, first thing, and especially if people are paying cash, right? If you're getting a loan, insurance, you got to have that before they'll close the deal. But if you're paying cash, you don't have to have home insurance.
Right.
I had a client who did that, moved into the house, was doing like some fix-up stuff, but had moved all of his appliances and everything, got robbed. Everything was gone. No homeowner's insurance. I was like,
So that brings up a good point. Dan, you and I were talking the other day. How long is it taking to get insurance quotes right now?
Good question. It's taking a lot longer than it did a year ago, put it that way. Yeah, you want to, when you put a contract on a house, once it's accepted, I recommend having them call an insurance broker, insurance agent right away and get the process started.
anyone in
Getting
particular?
quotes. Well, you call me. I've got
Wait,
28 companies.
Who are you?
A van.
With Goose Head Insurance.
With Goose Head Insurance.
So we got, give me a call and start the process right away. Some of these companies, I've got one that asks for an inspection report. If it's a new purchase, they want to see an inspection report. They take 7 to 10 business days to review it because there's a big pipeline.
Wow.
Get back to you, either approve or deny.
So are those the best rate companies?
That's one of the good rate companies.
So that's something to think about right there.
Yep.
And
And
I'm
then
going to interrupt you.
there's another one right now that as you send in 8 pictures of the interior, 8 pictures of the exterior, and I want you to photograph the water heater. There's about 20 different things. Some of these companies are just trying to slow down the process to mitigate risk, and they're getting, they got real busy since 2017. A lot of homes changed hands, a lot of new builds. So they're just slowing down the process.
So when Brent writes a
I'm not saying they're
contract,
turning people down, they're just making it a little more difficult to get there.
So
More
Brent
hoops
when
to
Brent
jump
writes a
through.
contract, how long should he give for the insurance date on the contract to make sure that everybody's protected?
What do you typically use?
10 days.
10.
So I usually say within 10 days, that's their option to get out of the contract if they can't get insurance. And maybe I'm wrong, because I always think of, hey, if you're in a suburban setting and it's a normal tract house. You're not out in the boonies and there's no fire danger or whatever. It shouldn't be difficult to get insurance.
Yeah, I get those phone calls. I got one yesterday on a duplex in Littleton. I wanted a quote on it. I gave him a quote. I said, this one's going to need some pictures. This one's doesn't. This one was 4,700, and this one was 6,000. It's a big duplex, old duplex. So that's exactly what he wanted. He needed to decide whether or not the insurance was going to work. So
Yeah.
If we got the pictures, we got it approved. We can get this rate. If not, we're going to get this rate. So we take worst case scenario. Because he was running his numbers too to see if he wanted to follow through.
I was just going to say, and especially when it's an investment property, a lot of people aren't counting in that insurance. And now that's going to be a bigger and bigger chunk.
It is.
Where it's like, okay, well, it used to be, yeah, I know it's going to cost $2,500 or whatever it is. It's not like that anymore.
This gentleman was a young man from California. It was his first property out here, and he didn't know. And somebody said, call a Goose Head agent. So he called me, and that's exactly what he was looking for.
Yeah.
He said, I don't need anything right now. I'm going to see if I'm going to follow through with this contract, and then we'll talk. So, good question. That's exactly what happened in this particular situation.
So how much
Now,
time
if
do
you're
you
a
want?
mortgage person, 10 days to 14 days is probably good.
So 15 days for any
Worst case
voters.
scenario. Worst case scenario. Or for what you're doing now, on what you're doing, you want to give them, you want to start right away. Let's say Brett refers you a client, you got to file. As soon as you start that file, start that process, just like you do with everything else. Because there's debt to income issues. You want to make sure you got a good price and figure out the deductibles and how it all fits into their program. Principal, interest, taxes, insurance.
What's that?
Yeah. So. Make sure that works too. Now that can go all the way up until about a week before.
Yeah.
Before you submit that into exactly what it is. But if you start day one, it's a 30-day close. We can get back with some good answers by ahead, right? At least a couple days or maybe a week before you need it for your final submission to your mortgage company or your investor.
Nice. All right. Colorado's had a bunch of stuff that's happened in the last 4 or 5 years, right? It's kind of changed the way that insurance looks at things, right? We had the fire up in Superior, Rock Creek and Superior, that area. We've had a ton of hail claims, right? We had a tornado in Highlands Ranch.
We did.
I mean, weird stuff, and I don't want to get into the whole climate change and what's going on, but things are getting weirder. How does insurance handle that? What's important to know about that kind of stuff?
Well, Mother Nature has been pretty busy the last few years in Colorado. Fire line score is probably the most damaging to what your premiums are these
Say that
days.
again.
Your fire line score.
So explain that a little bit.
Oh, it goes
Fire
from
line.
1 to 10, and then it kind of.
But what is a fire line?
Fire line's like how close they think you are to where, like that, the Black Forest down here, for example, where
You back right to the.
How close you are to something like that. How close you are to the trees. Whether or not you have 75-foot clearance around your house in the mountain house. Fire mitigation. What the history of fire has been in that particular area.
So having a fire hydrant close, does that help, or a fire station
Of course
close?
it does. That's part of the fire line score. If you get into some of these smaller neighborhoods, we'll have a cul-de-sac or something, up in the mountains, Morrison, what have you. You got to know if there's cisterns. How many gallons of water are in there. This stuff's all known on the database. I don't go out and look at this stuff. It kicks out the score for us and tells us. And then how far is it to the fire station? It's going to take them. It's going to take them. 15 minutes or
How much?
20 minutes.
Right,
The house
5
is
minutes.
gone in 30.
How much damage is the difference between 15 and 20 minutes is significant.
So that's a big indicator too. History, distance from the fire station, cisterns, or if it's on public water, how far away the fire hydrant is. Those are the typical things they're looking at. So I think about it all makes sense.
Yeah. And there's some, in Superior, let's go think back to Superior. There are a lot of people that I know who were underinsured, right? They just didn't keep up with the rates of building and housing and all of that. How do you avoid that? What should people be looking for? How often should they, talk to you about the value of their home, or do you just do an automatic upgrade? How does that work?
Insurance companies will increase it, do a cost to build increase typically every year, 3, 4, 5%, sometimes higher, depending on what the market's.
So how do you make sure? How do you make sure that you have enough insurance to cover the rebuild? Because, like I heard up in Superior, there were some policies that people had where it wasn't enough to rebuild their homes. So what do people need to look for besides just calling BAM? What is a key they can look for on their policies?
Price per square foot rebuild above grade. That's what we look for at Colorado.
Okay.
So we have what's called a replacement cost estimator that's done with every policy. You can't just insure a house. Somebody says, "Well, I paid $300 for it. I want to insure it for $300." Well, the dirt's worth $100 of that.
Right.
Only $200. So, which one to look at is CoreLogic is the company, and it's a big firm, and they spit out, I think, credits for all kinds of good stuff, but they spit out what it's going to cost to rebuild that house. So I put out all the details that I get off the county website, all the dimensions, everything the house has, and I put it all in there, and it tells me how much it's going to cost to rebuild that house. And it factors in the basement too, whether it's finished or unfinished. But your square footage is above grade. So if it's a 1,000 square foot house, rebuild cost is $300 a square foot. It's $300,000. So they tell you what that's. We can't just go around throwing numbers out there. Now, you also could put extended replacement cost on these policies, and I typically put at least 20%, although some companies I can go up to 100%. And that is extenuating circumstances like the Marshall Fire. When you have, 1,000 homes burned down?
Mm-hmm.
Well, the cost to rebuild might go from $250 a square foot or $300 a square foot to $500.
Supply and demand, man.
You're
going to
gonna
get.
be, I mean, that's an extreme example of 1,000 or 1,200
Right.
homes. A lot of those aren't even rebuilt. And those are going to cost $450, $500 a square foot.
So in the Marshall Fire, say that the house burned down, they've got a mortgage to pay. Do they still have to pay that mortgage while the house is burned down?
Yes.
So
And that mortgage, but there is a coverage on there that's loss of use. So you
But
will
you
get
spend-
paid by them to use that money.
but most of those people use that loss of use to rent another home to live in. So
Exactly.
you're still paying your mortgage on now a piece of dirt, and not even counting.
Do you have friends that are doing that right now still?
Yep.
That's not a good thing.
And I've had friends who've just given up, who just said, "Screw it, we're going to move. We're going to build somewhere else."
I've heard of people doing that.
Because it's
And that's because the insurance companies, why is that?
a lot of it was time. They just ran out of time, right? They couldn't get stuff done quick enough. And I don't know who to blame. I mean, there's a lot of blame to go around. But some of them couldn't get the city to give them the permits to do demo, to start building again, whatever it was. Some of them were underinsured. But I think typically it's like 2 years, right, that you have of that loss.
Some of it's actual loss, so it can go on for more than 2 years, but a lot of them are just 2 years.
But if they're going to pay for if they're going to pay for someplace else for you to live, for these people that I know, it was a 2-year policy, whatever, and they couldn't get their house built, in 2 years, right? They just couldn't. They couldn't get builders. They couldn't get supplies. They couldn't get enough stuff.
So I have a question. So these people that are displaced, will the insurance company end up cutting a check to the mortgage company for them to endorse to either pay off the mortgage and they get the difference? How does that work if they don't rebuild it?
Example, if somebody has a $300,000 mortgage,
And the cost to build was $500,000.
$500,000.
And if you don't know, we'll research it and find out.
I'd have to check into that closer. I haven't had that happen.
Yeah.
Or somebody's house is burned all the way to the ground like that.
Yeah, and I think the key is staying on top of your mortgage, staying on top of your insurance, making sure that things match and that you've got the coverage that you need.
Yeah, I would recommend putting that, extended replacement cost on, because that's cheap. It's inexpensive. I put as much on there on every policy as I possibly
Yeah,
can.
you did that for me.
Just in case something like that happens, where there's a bunch of homes damaged and the price goes up that much. It's a funny coverage, because you can ask most insurance companies what that, what's an extenuating circumstance. And they won't actually tell you, but once you throw those bills in there, they'll usually pay them.
Yeah.
And I work for Goose Head. I have a Goose Head franchise, which is the right to do business state of Colorado, their platform. I had 5 years. But Goose Head itself, we've got, I think 140 companies nationally. And since we're publicly traded on the NASDAQ, all of our companies have to be board approved. So they're all solid. We don't have any problems with claims. We don't have companies that are maybe really inexpensive, but they don't pay any claims because they're inexpensive.
So, and I think it's important to know what you're getting for your insurance too. My personal story is we bought our house that we live in now, and the roof was, it was an old roof. It was shake shingle. And my thing was like, I'm just praying for hail. I'm just praying for hail. And we got a little bit of hail. I called my agent. It was one of the big firms, whatever, that you hear advertised on TV. Anyway, and I said, so, we got a little bit of hail. Do you think we should have someone come out and look at the roof, and see if we can get it replaced? She looked it up and she said, oh, you've got actual cost replacement for the roof. And since it's 30 years old, the roof's 30 years old, there's no value. So there's no coverage. I was like, what the hell is that? I had no idea that there's a possibility that I could have home insurance that wouldn't cover my roof. And it's a $25,000, $30,000 roof. Then we switched companies, waited for it to hail again, and eventually got it covered. But something to just think about, right? I assumed I have homeowners insurance. It's going to cover the frickin' roof, but you just don't know.
See that actual cash value.
Okay, that's what that's called, yeah.
Most roofs depreciate over 20 to 30 years. So if that roof's 30 years old and you got ACV on the roof, which a lot of companies won't give you RC, which is replacement cost on the roof, on a roof that old, then it's going to be fully depreciated after 20 or 30 years, depending on the roof.
Yep, that's where we ended up with.
You always want to look at RC or ACV on roofs. That's a big one.
Basically, what you're saying is file a claim every 10 years to make sure your roof is covered.
What's RC and AC? What does that mean? I don't know. Replacement cost.
Yeah, RC is replacement cost, full replacement cost. So it doesn't matter if your roof is $20,000 and it's 20 years old, they're going to fully replace it minus your deductible. If you have a 20-year-old roof and it's ACV and it's 20 years expired or fully depreciated, you're going to get zero. So you want to look at that on everything.
Got it.
Now, some companies are paring that back a little bit and saying, if your roof's over 10 years old, they'll only give you ACV. The nice thing about, I had a farmer's insurance agency for about 5 years as well, or 4 years. Sold that because now I have 26 companies. So I have different, nothing against farmers, great company, see them on TV all the time now. But now I have options for my clients. So if farmers, for example, didn't want to do an RC, full replacement cost, the customer had no choice.
Right.
Now I just say, go for the company A. I'm like, well, these guys don't have it. I'm going to set it over here. So you always have the client at the center of the, what you're trying to accomplish, having the best product for the best price.
So when a homeowner's getting their first quote, you have like a 5 bullet point checklist that they really need to ask. Have you thought about that?
Ask me?
Yeah.
Well,
Replacement cost versus AC's definite.
Especially on first-time home buyers, I go through every coverage with them. Typically, I'll get the information I need from them. I'll prepare the quotes in my comparative rater, pull out the top 4 or 5, boil those down to about 1 or 2 good ones, and then I'll send them the best one. I'll say, it's time to call you. They call me back and we talk, and I go through coverage A, B, C, D, the whole thing, so they fully understand. I ask everybody right up front, how many houses have you bought? Is this your first house? I say whatever, and what do you know about insurance? Would you like me to explain it to you? Especially first-time home buyers, I just demand that I explain it.
Yeah.
So I want them to know. It could be $3,000, $4,000, $5,000 a year. Would you want to know what you're paying for?
Right.
Yeah. And even, there's people that have had probably 5 or 6 homes, including myself, more than that. And I still don't even understand half the time what my insurance covers.
Right. So I think that's the key is like having somebody that you can call and go,
But I
hey,
didn't listen.
yeah.
I didn't have my listening ears on.
So,
Pretty typical.
and I feel the same way about insurance brokers as I feel about lenders, right? You know, you both are kind of, no, I'm just kidding.
Bottom of the totem pole.
You're both bottom of the totem pole. You know, you're bottom feeders. You're right above.
Realtors are starting
Yeah,
to
I was like, you're right above realtors. I think in the in the public's view.
So
But
am I above realtors?
pardon, I average above realtors. I think in the public view. But one of the things that I like is I always tell people I want a door to knock on, right? I don't want to call an 800 number. I don't want to deal with somebody somewhere else, right? I want to knock on your door and go, hey, fix
Dan,
this
what's
shit.
your address?
577 Southwest,
I was like, I could read this.
Littleton, Colorado, 80120.
So, but
So
no,
if you can knock on Van's door, go and knock it.
Yeah,
But I
it's right
think-
over there in Old Town Littleton.
I think that's the key, though, right? You want to have somebody knock on it. Same thing with a mortgage lender, right? I don't want to send people to. We just had a situation, right? Big bank.
Yep.
Can we? I don't know. We're not supposed to say names. I don't know, but big bank that you've heard of in America.
Is American that name?
Is it yeah, one of those big banks?
Bank
and had
in
had a client go through. We're 3 weeks into the process, and something changes in there. They can't do the loan. I'm like, crap. Calling, get an 800 number, can't get that across, right? Can't find somebody who really gives a shit, right? Because they're in Minneapolis or wherever the hell they're based out of, San Francisco. And my guy is 1 out of 1 million of their clients, right? With Vince, I know where Vince lives. I know where Vince works, right? I can go rattle his cage, and we have a relationship that Vince knows he's got to make things right, or I'm going to find another lender to work with, right? So I have a little bit of leverage. I got no leverage with the big banks. They could care less about me. But having somebody whose door that you can knock on, and I feel the same way about my insurance agent, right? I want to have someone who, when things go south, I can call and say, hey, what's going on? How do I fix this? Should I file this claim or not? Right? I think that's just an important thing to know is people looking at insurance. Well, I've got, the one on TV or whatever it is. I've got everything covered under one. Is that the best choice? I don't know.
I tell people right up front when I go through their coverage, I tell them if you think you have a claim, on cars, just take it over and get your free estimate and see if it's big enough if it's a large enough claim to do. Now, if it's on your house, I've got a few handymen or construction people that I send out there for free. They'll go out and look at it and say either you should make a claim or you shouldn't, rather than them calling one of the companies and having their person go out there and say you can't make a claim, and then they give them a zero claim deal with your insurance company. Score.
To clarify, if you file a claim on the house and you don't follow through, that becomes a $0 claim.
Yeah.
If you file a claim on a car but don't follow through,
Still a $0 claim.
it still
But
shows
you're
up.
not having them inspect the car. You're going over to wherever you use for your body shop and say, hey, can I have an estimate? You don't even tell the company anything. You're just doing the estimate first.
So
And then if
don't
there's
file.
$10,000 worth of damage, you got a $500 deductible, you're getting called the company to file a claim.
And if you drive a Tesla and you nick your car, then you file a claim because nothing on a Tesla costs less than $5,000.
Really?
It seems like it. It's one of those things like
So
nothing goes wrong is cheap.
Hey, then, so does the $0 claim on a car affect the premiums as well?
Yeah.
Even though you haven't had them pay anything.
Just by asking, it screws you up. So
Really messed
by
up.
calling that 800
I wish I had a
number.
good insurance agent.
So move your autos.
Time for your annual review.
No, Van, I've worked with Van for a long time now, and I highly, highly recommend him. He picks up the phone, and he gets the quotes as fast as he can. And there's usually not any change in the quotes once he gives you that quote.
Yeah,
So
Paul,
kudos to Van, right?
There we go. Yay! Golf clap.
Appreciate it. Yeah, if you do good for your customers, I mean, like I mean, I work pretty much all on referral basis. So, when you go back to what you're talking about as far as using like a national lender, people trying to do something, instead of using events, they try to do it direct, thinking they're going to save some money on the rate or what have you. Same thing with insurance. Some people go on there and try to get, somebody off the commercial like Geico or somebody. Like Geico says they have home insurance. They don't have home insurance.
Oh,
They farm that out to
Beep,
other
beep,
companies.
beep, beep that out, beep that out, beep that out.
he said it, not us.
It's true.
If you're going to sue, sue him. Yeah.
Geico has great auto insurance.
I didn't know that.
They just don't have home insurance.
Right.
They
Really?
farm it out to Travelers, Nationwide, some other
Huh,
which
I had
is
no
fine,
idea.
but they advertise that they actually have home insurance. But my point was, if you're trying to buy stuff online, I have people all the time that come to me and say, we got a week to go closing. I called company ABC, and they said they were going to do my insurance for me. They're in New York City, blah, blah, blah. And they dropped the ball. It's not right, and I can't get a hold of anybody. So then whoever's managing that loan, hopefully it's somebody like Vince, I step in and fix it. And just somebody's being paid a commission on mortgages and on insurance. That's just the way it is. It doesn't matter if you're doing it online. That's an agent you're talking to on the other end of that line.
Right.
Just because they're 1,000 miles away and you can never talk to them, doesn't mean they're not charging. So you might as well do it with somebody that's, like you said, local, that you can, knock on the door. Something goes wrong. I'd hate to think that I bought a house and I got a good deal on it because interest rates were a little higher, back in December. There was a decline on that housing value, and I was going to swing in there and buy it. And I got a 2 or 3 week close. And I think I got it all dialed in with some lender on the East Coast, an insurance agent.
Mhm.
And I go to close that thing, and this thing's going to be worth $100,000 more as soon as I buy it. Boom. Closing destroyed, game over. I just lost $100,000 because I tried to get cheap on my mortgage person and my insurance person.
Yep. Stepping over dollars to pick up pennies.
Exactly.
Right?
Say
How
it
often?
again. Say it again.
It's all saying stepping over dollars to pick up pennies.
Yep.
Right? And so often we do that where it's, I want to save this money, right? And it's a small amount of money that you're saving versus the costs later on down the road.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And I have a client that had a home warranty. They redid their kitchen, got all new appliances, and they called the home warranty company and said, hey, we have all new appliances. They're all under warranty. We don't need the appliances covered for the home warranty. Can you just, can you separate that out? Home warranty said, no, it's one price and, whatever it is. And they said, well, screw you. Their furnace went out a couple weeks later. And I was like, yeah, one of those things. Like, well, you were upset and you didn't want to pay that extra money for something that you had double insured. But realistically, it ended up costing them thousands. So I think it's just important to think about is cheap isn't always the best option, right?
And you believe that?
I do believe that.
Are
Right.
you buying lunch today?
Yes, and it's cheap. We're having the taco trucks outside.
Yeah, for most people, buying a house is going to be the largest investment they ever make.
Oh, yeah.
So you darn well want to make sure you got things right.
Yeah.
And that's got a
So,
good team around you. That's
Right.
in closing, wrap it up, Brent. Van, do you have anything you want to add?
No, that was a good discussion. I think we covered most of the important items in regards to home insurance.
So what did you want to talk about? Anything else besides home insurance?
I just,
We didn't want to talk about fishing because, you've already beat him up over that.
Well, he never takes me. So.
that's not all I talk about. It's insurance today. But
So I'm thinking that, for write-offs, we have 2 people here that could take me fishing as a write-off.
right.
Yeah. Just saying.
Well, Van's the guy.
Only one of us has a boat.
I've invited you out several times.
I know.
And you always, no, I can't go. I got to do this. I got to
I'm
do
working, helping people with their insurance.
Yeah.
that.
Damn work gets in the way of it all the time.
Thanks for having me, guys. That was fun.
Hey, we appreciate it. And we will see you guys next time. And hopefully we will have some fishing stories next time Van gets back.
Let's go ice fishing.
Let's go ice fishing. You an ice fisherman?
I have done it, yeah.
We're going ice fishing.
All right, we're going to talk about
And
this.
we'll do the podcast ice fishing.
Okay.
There's a lot of downtime in ice fishing, so we'll have plenty of time for that. All right, guys, thanks for joining us. Again, Brent Hilvitz with Redesigned Realty. Vince Reese with Plum Creek Funding, and Van with Goose Head Insurance.
Thank you, Van. Really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thanks.